The way the mid-caps in the bank nifty are going, it looks like more of us are reading the same trend like we are telling you from the word go today on COVID numbers. The decline for the fourth straight day to 3.55 lakh fresh cases compared to 4 lakh 4 days ago. So market is latching on to that hope. But there is a shortage of vaccines and medicines, and India is still, fiercely in the grip of a second COVID wave. And hence the supply uncertainty around vaccines, and when is the entire population or even the material population going to get vaccinated? Key drugs continuing to be in short supply. With that backdrop, there are more and more experts who are looking at a case for compulsory licensing, which will allow the manufacture, use and sale of patented products without the permission of the owner. Remember, these licenses are issued only in the case of a national or an extreme emergency. And there are a lot of prerequisite conditions, but the patent office in the past, we can remember, for a cancer drug in 2011 and for an anti-AIDS drug in 2000, patent offices have allowed this even in India. But is this the time to call for it? Will it make any sense given the kind of drugs and vaccines we're looking at? Ramesh Swaminathan, Executive Director and Global CFO at Lupin. Anna Swami Vaidish, Vaidish as we know him, former Managing Director at GlaxoSmithKline, and Murali Neelakantan, Principal Lawyer at Amicus, are joining us now. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you very much for obliging. Murali, let me come to you. What's the legal position? I mean, there can't be a more dire emergency in our times than COVID. Would the government be perfectly in order in legal, in a legal sense, if it were to invoke compulsory licensing for things like tocilizumab or even for that matter remdesivir?
Absolutely. There are different provisions for compulsory licensing, and there is a bit of a nuance, and I'll hope that your viewers who are not lawyers will understand. There is a compulsory licensing in steady state during normal times. There is a slightly different version of compulsory licensing, which is government non-commercial use. That is the one that we're more concerned with, and we should be more concerned with. And that allows the government to just notify a set of patents for compulsory licensing, but only to be used for government purpose. That is the provision that we haven't really focused on very, very clearly. That is Section 100 of the Patents Act. All we're asking is for the government to focus on that and say, here are the list of drugs which are covered by patent. We notify them. Everybody who has capacity to produce them can produce them. But that doesn't mean that those who have capacity will produce them. And therefore, we have to look beyond the Patents Act. The provision really that we should be focusing on is Section 26B of the Drugs Act. That is something we haven't had much discussion about. That provision allows government to direct manufacturers to produce specified drugs. In this case, government could direct those who have facilities to produce vaccines to produce the 2 vaccines that we have approved. It can direct manufacturers who can produce tocilizumab and remdesivir, although I'm not a big fan of remdesivir, to produce these drugs. So there's a slight nuance there. The answer really is in 26B of the Drugs Act. There might be an aspect of compulsory licensing or government non-commercial use, but I think the practical solution, the more pragmatic solution, is to direct all vaccine manufacturers to use their capacities to produce these 2 vaccines. On Covaxin, the government owns the IP, owns the know-how, so there is no IP issue. So I don't want to undermine the IP issues, but there is a solution for us without having to resort to compulsory licensing. It's the same with Covishield. All we have to do is direct manufacturers who have vaccine production capacities to produce Covishield. There are no IP issues there. It's available. We have 12 BSL-3 facilities that can produce these vaccines. We are the largest producer of vaccines in the world. We've exported a lot of vaccines, so we have the know-how. I said all this in November and December. I wish the government had to listen to me then. We would
No,
have
absolutely.
had production.
Absolutely. Yesterday, when the PIB put out a release saying we have placed orders and we are opposing media reports which say that we have not placed orders, the question in all our minds was, haven't you placed it like 8 months too late? Should it not have come earlier? I mean, I take your point on that. But before that, before I come to Ramesh on, whether how quickly they can put the capacity, let me ask Vaidesh, how will foreign manufacturers respond? Murli says the law is very clear. But can foreign companies take us through a legal quagmire?
Lata, first and foremost, thanks for having me. The second is, at this point of time, I think according to me, I think we are focusing on relatively what I call it as a non-issue. Today is the time of collaboration. And as an example, when you looked at Remdesivir, somewhere in September, October, we had 7 parallel licensing has been given. 7 companies are manufacturing it. Now, it so happened our COVID cases went down to an extent where they reduced the capacity, and you had a big spike that's happening somewhere in March. And these are all lyophilized vaccine. It takes about a month to 1.5 months for it to kickstart it back. So I think we need to be careful about how we give a narrative about this whole stuff about compulsory licensing and all kinds of stuff. I think it's a reality of situation is that I think we as a country has done a great job of getting this parallel licensing as a concept, which is now being adopted on a global basis. Almost every country is doing this, right? J&J, they have given their vaccine license to manufacture at Merck and 3 other companies in the United States. So the current Remdesivir shortage that we are talking about, though as Ramesh was mentioning, that it has its own specific application, but this whole stuff that we are talking about is just the fact nobody anticipated this spike to happen, the manufacturing to kickstart with 7 companies that already have a license to manufacture. So I'm not sure why we are going down this path of compulsory licensing and all kind of stuff. Please follow what you're already doing it. Like, for example, in vaccine, it's a highly specialized, intense bioprocess, right? It's dealing with complex biologics. By saying just like that, go and do compulsory licensing, first and foremost, the owner of the license knows how this particular technology works. In addition to that, we are in phase 3 and phase 4. Why would you go into generally giving it to everyone to manufacture? So this has to be done with the proper collaboration with the license holder and with the people who have decided to do a parallel licensing. For example, you have Sputnik with Dr. Reddy's, and you've got various other vaccines. Zydus has got a vaccine. Now, unfortunate part is that suddenly we have become hurried because of the pandemic that we are suddenly in. We are trying to find some quick fix. At this point of time, as far as I'm concerned, I think we should be looking at a time-tested parallel licensing, which is a very nice process where there's a good understanding, collaboration that happens, transfer of technology happens. So I'm not sure whether conversation about the compulsory licensing is a matter of importance right now.
Mr. Vaidesh, forgive me, but the reason we are asking these questions is that we are in an unprecedented human crisis where every day means more lives lost. And therefore, I mean, it's our job to discuss all the options on the table, options which are provided by the law. I'm going to take the same question to Ramesh Swaminathan. Now, Ramesh, you're a manufacturer or, a local listed company. The provisions in the law are there, but if the provisions were to be invoked, and specifically the one that Murli just spoke of, I think 26A is that section that he mentioned, if the government were to start directing companies to produce certain drugs, whether it's Remdesivir or one of the others, how would you take that? Because it would perhaps entail disruption in your other business. So would you be opposed to something like this? And for vaccines, is it even possible? Can a drug manufacturer even repurpose his facility to produce a vaccine at all?
I would say thank you, Lata, for having me on. I heard Annasamy talking about, Mr. Vaidesh talking about the fact that he thinks that it's actually a surge demand and this will actually be met in the next couple of months or so. Whilst there's, of course, a case for that, the fact of the matter is the Supreme Court, as well as the Subject Experts Committee, in its recent hearings have been talking about the fact that the number of players needs to be increased. And the Supreme Court actually went about asking, in fact, the central government why they were not considering compulsory licensing. There is actually a shortage in India for products like remdesivir, tocilizumab, baricitinib, and molnupiravir. And of course, molnupiravir is of course a new drug which Merck is wanting to license out to 5 players in India. Well, to my mind, it remains to be seen. Whilst there could be capacities, the fact of the matter is there is also a surge demand. So one has to take a commercial call on this. Your next question was, are there enough capacities? If we talk about vaccines in India, Covishield, I believe that there are, there's capacity to produce about 100 million doses per month. In the case of Covaxin, it's about 12.5 doses per month. So it comes to about, say, about 1,300 million doses per annum. And you got Sputnik, which has again been licensed out to at least about 5 people, including DRL, Gland, Panacea Biotech, and the like. So that's another 850. So you got close to about 2 billion capacities for that. Is that good enough? Is something that needs to be gauged. But going back to your question as to whether capacities can be created, for sure, capacities can be created for vaccine. You can repurpose your existing plants. Perhaps your injectables plant can be done. It would take some investments. It could be done in a short while. A new plant might potentially take about at least about 12 months, I would say. And in the case of some of these other drugs that we spoke about, I'm sure it's not going to disrupt as long as the demand is there. And if it's commercially viable, it should be possible to actually produce the other drugs in India.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, let me agree with Murli on the remdesivir issue, considering what WHO has said. But in the case of tocilizumab, etc., I mean, I can see every other day friends messaging frantically saying doctors recommended this and asked us to get it on our own. And, it's running into lakhs, supposedly in the black market. One doesn't know, one only hears the buzz. But no, Ramesh, I wanted to exactly get this. At the moment, Serum is only going to get to 100 million in terms of capacity, or I think 120 million. At the moment, they are still at about 7 crore. So that 10 or 11 crore is what they're going to achieve by May. And I think Bharat Biotech is working with just 1 crore, and they're going to get to about 6-7 crore starting July. So there is and even that, we are looking at, 100 crore people, each of whom have to get 2 doses, so 200 crore. That is a sizable number that we are looking at. So, Ramesh, if you were told by ICMR that we are ready to cooperate with you since we own the AP, and you started today repurposing your plants, by when will you be able to bring the vaccine to the market?
That's a very difficult question to answer, Lata. It's a theoretical question, but I would imagine it will take about 4 months in order to, there would be additional equipment and the like. There's, of course, changeover processes. There is a regulatory pathway, a glide path, or actually a compliance pathway, which needs to be kind of adhered to. So I would think about 4 months is when this could potentially be done. But for sure, the repurposing can certainly be achieved.
I just say that.
Yeah, Murli, you were going to say something. Yeah.
Yeah, the data I have is that the serum capacity will be 9 crores at peak. We have Bharat Biotech, which will have 5 crores per month at peak. We expect Sputnik to have 5.2 crores at peak. If they meet all of these peak numbers, we'll have 141 crores of vaccines between April 1st and December 31st. My point was slightly different, which is that all the others who have capacities and were not utilized. So we have this plant sitting in Chengalpet. We have Hafkin Institute right across the street from me. There are many of these facilities. We have 12 BSL-3 facilities which can produce vaccines. We haven't tapped any of those. And that is what the Supreme Court has asked, is why have you not used all these other capacities to produce vaccines? The time path to this is not as long as
1 minute, Murli, 1 minute, Murli, 1 minute. The Hafkins Institute has been asked to collaborate and make the vaccine, but when we interviewed them, they said it will take end of year.
Yeah, and I'll explain why. The it's not a BSL-3 facility. So they need a little bit of equipment. They need to do a little bit of construction to get it up to that facility. So that's slightly different. There are others which already have it. So we save about 3-4 months in that exercise.
Who are these others?
We have a dozen of them. So all those who are signed up for Sputnik would have had capacities built.
Okay.
We have, and this is information that was provided by Sujata Rao. So it's not some personal information that I have.
Okay.
The technology transfer from AstraZeneca to Serum took less than 2 months. Okay. So it's not something that was going to take a year to do. So it can be done, and it will be done much quicker now because they've done tech transfers to India, they've done tech transfers to Brazil, they know how to do tech transfers. The process of production itself has been quickened. From the original 120 days, they're almost down to 60 days now. So we're talking about months, not years. We're talking about a few weeks and not months for much of the production to start. So it is possible with the facilities we have to do the tech transfer. With Bharat Biotech, we already have the tech. We have done a transfer to Panacea. We know how it is done. So that vaccine, there is no excuse. There are no IP issues. You don't have to beg, borrow, steal, plead, none of that stuff. Why isn't the government doing that? We can have double the capacity for Bharat Biotech by looking to these 10, 12 other manufacturers. Why isn't the government doing that?
Okay, fair enough. Ramesh, just a quick last question from my side. We keep hearing that even Pfizer, Moderna, at some point they all want to bring their vaccines into India. God alone knows what we were doing for the last 12 months, that these capacities are not ready, as Murli was pointing out. What would be your prescription for now speeding this up as quickly as possible? Because we've shut down a large part of economic activity to prevent death. The moment we start reopening, who knows, the numbers will start going up again. So what would be your prescription?
No, I think you need to bring them in as early as possible. And I think the government has already started taking action for that. So there is an expectation that both Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson as well would be in India as early as possible.
Are you guys talking to anybody?
I'm sorry?
Are you guys talking to anybody? Will you be in the vaccine field at all, Ramesh?
Talk about it, Lata, for sure.
You are talking. Okay. Vaidheesh, I just wanted to wrap this up by asking you about those tocilizumab kind of drugs. I take the point about remdesivir, so I won't go down that path. But can't these be speeded up since they are not like vaccines, as you pointed out, that perhaps is a different ball game. But even that we are not, we are struggling with scarcities.
No, Lata, absolutely. I cannot disagree with what you said. They've given a license to Cipla. Now, what we need to do is that get more people to get parallel license and get on with this, right? So what I'm saying that we don't need to wait for anyone.
How long would it take if they did it today?
See, it should not, I'm not a great technical expert. Okay. Within about 2 to 3 months' time, you should have that tocilizumab. One thing you have to remember is that we also need to know it has a very specific indication. Unlike remdesivir, still tocilizumab has got certain considerations, still not yet resorted. I know that there is a demand for it, but without going into the details, I think we need more like Cipla to start manufacturing this. I don't see any reason why we should move fast.
Sorry, let me just clarify that Cipla does not manufacture, it imports and distributes. So it is not being manufactured in India. So we don't have manufacturing of tocilizumab in India. And that has been the reason why we are stuck with facilities that can make tocilizumab. But there is demand for it, but we can't manufacture it and there is a shortage. So it's not as if the license is for manufacture, it's only a distributor.
Got that. So over there, we will have to get into the compulsory licensing as well as you said, Murli, the Drug Act as well, and force people to produce the drug which is so vitally needed. I mean, we can all ask the question, why was not been done all these days? I mean, even if you were relaxed in February, you could not have been relaxed in March. I can remember the numbers by heart. February, we were averaging 10,000 cases a day. March 1st, it was 15,000. March 17th, it was 35,000 fresh cases. March 25th, it was 60,000 fresh cases. And April 2nd, it was 90,000 fresh cases. I mean, you would be blind not to see the trend. And so that we should be discussing this now is really postponing, kicking the can quite unnecessarily, and we are paying a huge price for it. Thank you very much, Murli, Ramesh, and Vaidish for joining us. It was a very enlightening conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's take a quick break, and then we have to get to other things and other business.